Okay, calm down, breathe. He'll be here any minute, and you've got to do this. You owe him that, at least. I look ridiculous fussing over these stupid countertops, like everything's normal. Another glance at the clock. Where is he? Maybe it'll be easier if he's a little late. Gives me another minute to what? Find the right words? There are no right words. Need space. The phrase rings hollow in my head. It's the best I could come up with, the least cruel sounding way to break this. Our life. Jason's life. What the hell am I doing? A wave of nausea hits, and for a second, I think I might actually throw up this half-eaten salad that's been my dinner for the past week. Nope. Can't do that. Imagine explaining that to him. The front door slams. Jason's home. God. He smells like the little league team he coaches. A good smell, usually. One that used to make me smile. Now it just makes something clench tight in my chest. I force the smile anyway. Old habits die hard, I guess. Hey, how was the game? My voice sounds too high, too brittle. Way to play it normal, Emily. We won. Man, what a last inning. He's off and running, already lost in baseball stories, and I can't catch a breath. Like I'm drowning. And that endless monologue of his is the weight on my chest. Dinner is a blur of pretending to eat and offering the occasional, at what I assume are the right moments. He's not an idiot. Has he noticed how distant I've been? Has he connected that to Mark? My cheeks flush just thinking his name, but it's mixed with this sick twist of excitement I hate myself for. You good? You're awfully quiet. Jason finally seems to notice. Bless his simple, baseball-loving soul. Lie time. Tired. Long week. I hate my voice, the tremor in it. Okay, well don't stay up on my account. He heads off to the den, the TV flickering on with its familiar drone of sportscasters. My chance. I stand up, legs wobbly, and practically run for the bedroom. Headache. I offer in a pathetic attempt at an excuse, closing the door softly with a click that feels like a gunshot. Here I am, hiding like a teenager from the scary decision I've already made. Pathetic. But what else am I supposed to do? I sink onto the bed, curling into a ball with the weight of it all. There are tears, I know, but they barely register anymore. Underneath it all is this desperate buzzing, like I'm about to jump out of my skin. Not from fear, weirdly, but this other thing. It's a damn relief, in a horrifying way, that this is finally happening. The house creaks as it settles, an accusing sound in the sudden silence. That's the thing about quiet. It gives your guilty conscience an awfully loud megaphone. Jason's truck rumbles away, and the relief is a physical thing. A tightness in my chest finally easing. Then, the shame floods in. I should be missing him, worrying about his silly little conference. Instead, the only thing prickling at my skin is the anticipation of, what? Another text from Mark? More of the breathless, dangerous conversations that are turning me into someone I don't recognize? I sink into a steaming bath, hoping the water will wash away the feeling that I'm spiraling out of control. The scent of lavender is supposed to be calming. All I smell is a desperate attempt to cover up the stink of betrayal. Mark texts, of course. Silly jokes, shared memories from a time when I thought his attention was just friendly. Now, each word crackles with a different energy. My hands shake as I type back, faster than I should. It feels like playing with fire, but the thrill outweighs the terror. For now, days bleed together in a haze of whispers and stolen glances at my phone. I move through our routines on autopilot. Cooking, laundry, a peck on the cheek when Jason comes home. It all feels like some play I'm acting in, badly. Every time he calls me, honey, it makes me want to scream. He must sense something's off. He's less distracted now, eyes lingering on me over the dinner table. That used to feel comforting. Now, it's like he's trying to piece together something he doesn't quite see, and part of me wants him to find out, to rip the Band-Aid off this festering lie. But even that thought is tainted. Not because I'm brave enough to tell the truth. No, the sick part is, I'm waiting for him to slip up. A late-night text, a trace of perfume. Something that'll give me permission for this. A way to blame him when I'm the one who broke us. The phone's tucked away when he's near. I lie through my teeth about work calls and old friends catching up. He tries to bridge the gap, talking more at dinner, suggesting a movie night. Just like we used to. It's torture. This play acting of a life we both know is dead. One night, as we lie side by side in the two-big bed, his breathing even with sleep, I reach for the phone. It's a compulsion now. Each text from Mark lights a fuse in me. One I know will lead to an explosion. I just don't know yet if it'll destroy me or set me free. I swear I haven't been this jittery since I snuck out of the house to me boys back in high school. Maybe it's just the extra shot of espresso in my latte. Or maybe it's the fact that I'm sitting across from Mark with his disarming smile and a dangerous undercurrent humming between us that has nothing to do with caffeine. So, how's Jason? His voice is low, just for me. It makes my ears burn. Fine. Busy with the team. I mumble into my coffee, unable to meet his gaze. Lies are easier over text, less real. Now, here in this bustling cafe with sunlight glinting off his stupid handsome face, the guilt takes on a flesh and bones kind of ugliness. We talk, but it's a dance of unspoken things. Casual touches that linger too long, memories shared that only deepen whatever the hell this is between us. I laugh too loud, aware of how different I must seem from the predictable Emily he thought he knew. The thrill of it is laced with a terror I refuse to acknowledge fully. As we finally leave, a hand grazes my lower back and stays there just a second too long. The touch sends a jolt through me. When I pull away, his eyes flash with something I recognize a little too well. Hunger. The drive home is a blur. Should I turn up the radio? Hide? Drown out the buzzing in my head? No. The silence matches perfectly with the awful truth. I crave that touch, however reckless, however wrong. Walking in the door, seeing Jason by the grill is jarring. The smell of burgers brings a wave of nausea, not appetite. Damn this normal life, I'm trampling all over. Hey, you're just in time. Brought you a beer, Jason beams, waving a spatula. It feels like an accusation. The worst part? I plaster a smile on my face and play the happy wife. Just when I think I've gotten away with it, Sarah's car pulls in the driveway. Of course, she would pick today for a random visit. Sarah's always been too perceptive for comfort. Her hugs are tight, her smile's genuine, but her eyes? They bore holes in you. Like she knows all your messy secrets and is waiting for you to trip up. Today, I can practically feel the X-ray intensity of those eyes on me. You seem, I don't know, different, she says over dinner, and my heart pounds a frantic tattoo in my ears. Does she know? Impossible, right? I laugh awkwardly, forcing down the greasy food that turns to ash in my mouth. They chat about baseball, family gossip, work, the dull drumbeat of life that usually lulls me into a comforting numbness. Tonight, each word is a clanging bell, a reminder of everything I'm destroying. Hours later, as I lie next to Jason, the quiet hum of the air conditioner is no match for the screaming in my head. This is just a taste of the hell to come. Every visit, every phone call, every sideways glance from Sarah will be another twist of the knife. I've trapped myself, and the walls are closing in. The words, "I can't stop thinking about you," hang in the air of my car like a poisonous cloud. They should be deleted, forgotten. My hands shake too much. I shove the phone in my bag, swearing it's the last time. Liar, whispers the voice in my head that's grown too loud lately. The park looks innocent enough in the early morning light. Birds chirp in the trees, a jogger bounces by, the picture of healthy routine. I feel like a walking disease. How could I do this? Right here where Jason and I had picnics in those early, earnest years. Mark appears, suddenly solid amidst the hazy guilt swirling in my stomach. He's less sure of himself now, the bravado replaced with something almost gentle. It makes it worse. This isn't just a tawdry fling. It's messing with someone's heart as well as my own wreck of a marriage. Emily, we shouldn't. He starts, but the words trail off as I move closer. A desperation I can't name pushing me. The kiss hits me like a grave crashing over rocks. Rough, messy, a battle between years of dormant longing and the shrieking voice of reason in my head. Finally, I break away, the sound of my ragged breathing filling the sudden silence. I'm sorry that was. I don't know what I'm doing, I stammer. Mark steps closer, fingers tracing my jawline. His touch is wildfire. The part of me that craves chaos responding with a jolt. Don't be, he murmurs. We both want this, right? It's a lie, but the truth is uglier. I nod, because admitting out loud that I want to set my life on fire makes me the villain of a story I no longer control. Getting home requires an act of willpower I'm not sure I possess. Each mile blurs, headlights turning into Jason's accusing eyes. Walking in the door, seeing the untouched breakfast plate he left me, is a fresh kind of torture. Hey, where were you? His voice is cheerful, and it's like a knife in my gut. Just errands. The lie falls flat, and he must sense it, because his brow furrows ever so slightly. The ache in my chest isn't just guilt now. It's the knowledge that this is only the beginning of the wreckage. My days are divided into two stark halves. The blazing intensity of stolen moments with Mark, and the gray, suffocating blur of my life with Jason. It's like stepping off a cliff and landing on a feather bed. Over and over again. Text messages have become my drug. Each notification is a shot of adrenaline. Even when it's something as mundane as, on my lunch break, thinking of you. It's the stolenness, the thrill that I shouldn't be feeling, that makes it addictive. At home, I may shell. Conversations with Jason fall flat. His attempts at reconnecting. The vase of roses left on the table. The tickets for a band we both used to love. Smother me. They're a constant spotlight on my betrayal. With Sarah, it's worse. Family dinners, where once I could hide in polite chatter, now become minefields. You two seem so distant lately, she says one evening. My eyes meet Jason's across the table. Did he notice the flicker of panic that crossed my face? Just tired. Long week, I manage. But the lie tastes sour in my mouth. It's not just Sarah, though. I'm lying to myself on a minute-by-minute basis. I bake Jason his favorite pie, to make up for being so distant. I linger when he hugs me goodnight, to pretend this still feels like home. Each act of deception compounds, making me hate myself more. Jason sees it, of course he does. He's not an idiot. He doesn't confront me, but the worry in his eyes is its own kind of accusation. The worst part? The guilt doesn't stop me. Each text to Mark, each rendezvous in a parking lot, feels like taking a much-needed breath of air, and I'm drowning. One evening, we're at dinner, just us. The clink of silverware against plates is excruciating in the thick silence. Suddenly, my phone buzzes with that heart-stopping notification sound. Jason looks up, startled. Everything okay? Frantic. I snatch the phone. It's Mark, stupidly, a picture. Him grinning, a half-eaten sandwich in hand. The caption. Wish you were here. Yeah, just chill. Work stuff. I stammer, deleting the photo with shaking fingers. I shove the phone in my pocket, but the damage is done. His expression, it's not accusing, exactly. Just wounded. That trusting openness he always had. The thing that drew me to him, now looks so fragile. It makes me want to crawl into a hole and disappear. I snap over some stupid thing later, a misplaced salt shaker becoming the fuel for a blazing argument. Jason looks at me, bewildered. It's like he doesn't even recognize the angry stranger I've become. And the terrible thing is, he's right. The anniversary of Jason's father's death dawns heavy and humid. It always brings out this quiet ache in him, a withdrawn sadness I've never known how to reach. There's a tightness in my chest mirroring his own. But mine is born from dread, not grief. Going to visit him later, he mumbles over a bowl of cereal he barely touches. A wave of nausea hits me. Will he find Mark in those old memories along with his dad's ghost? Will this be the day my flimsy house of cards comes crashing down? He spends most of the day in the garage, the kind of project-focused disappearing act he uses to cope. I should help, try to bridge the gulf between us. Instead, guilt and fear keep me frozen, hovering uselessly at the edge of the kitchen. When he comes in, there's dust on his jeans and a strange look in his eyes. Less sadness, more intensity. Did he find what I fear? Let's clean out the attic, he says abruptly. Time we got rid of those old boxes. My insides go icy. The attic, where everything goes to be forgotten. Or, apparently discovered. The cardboard box feels too heavy, like I'm hauling up the physical weight of all my lies. Inside, It's a jumble of dusty nostalgia, Jason's childhood toys, yellowed photo albums. And then, my heart stops. There, unmistakable, a faded photo. Mark, grinning into the camera, his arms slung casually over a younger Jason's shoulder. It's a college party, I realize sickeningly. How could I have forgotten this? How could I have missed that they knew each other? Jason is right behind me. Care to explain this? His voice is low, almost menacing. I turn to face him. The photo flutters to the floor. It's pointless now, Jason. I start, then stop. There are no words, no excuses. His silence is worse than any shouting. He's not even looking at me anymore. Just staring at the photo, his face hardening into a mask of cold anger. Finally, he speaks. How long? The question cuts through the air like a knife. I want to lie, make it less, minimize it. Instead, the truth spills out, a bitter torrent. He listens, unmoving. Each word must feel like a physical blow. It's more than I deserve, this chance to confess. But it also feels like the slam of the prison door behind me. When I finish, the silence stretches for an eternity. Finally, he turns away. The slump of his shoulders a silent accusation. Leave, he says, his voice hoarse. Just leave for tonight. And with that, my world collapses. I have no idea where to go, what to do. All I know is I have to obey. The truth hangs in the air between us, a toxic cloud. It's worse than I'd even imagined. Not the fury of a man betrayed, which I somehow deserved, but this bone-deep disappointment. Seeing Jason like this, broken where I thought he was strong, is its own special kind of hell. His questions whip through the air. When did it start? How could you? Each one is a knife. It's somehow quieter, more devastating than any yelling. There's a finality to his tone, a sense that the answers don't matter. I am beyond fixing. The sobs have been choking back, explode out of me. I can't bear to see the revulsion in his eyes, can't stomach the accusatory echo of his voice in our once safe home. I run, stumble up the stairs like a wounded animal, the force of my own shame of physical pain. The guest room, it's always been a blank canvas, holding the unspoken promise of a future that never happened. Now, the space mocks me. Tears blur the faded wallpaper, the untouched crib a cruel reminder of the life I've dynamited. Hours pass, or maybe only minutes. Every creak of the floorboards makes me cringe. Finally, I venture out, my footsteps hesitant. Jason sits at the kitchen table, head buried in his hands. The sight cuts me all over again. He looks so small, so defeated. I am a monster for causing this. A strange flicker of something like pity stirs within me. Is this the path forward? Me, the destroyer. Could I be the one to rebuild? Jason, I whisper, hating the tremble in my voice. His head jerks up, his face is ravaged, a decade older than it was this morning. The silence stretches unbearably. He opens his mouth, then closes it. Can we just talk? I beg, because the silence of this shattered kitchen is worse than any words he could say. He doesn't answer, but slowly, he pushes back his chair. A single small movement that contains a glimmer of hope I hardly dare to hold on to. My steps towards that table feel like the longest mile. The beginning of what? I don't know. An ending for certain. But maybe, just maybe, among the wreckage, the start of something else entirely. The envelope sits on the counter like a bomb. I know what it is before I even open it. Divorce papers. My hands shake as I pick it up, the weight of it far more than just paper and ink. Jason's signature is on the last page. Bold, unwavering. It's the finality of it that breaks me. The tears come hot and fast, staining the legal jargon. This time, the pain is deeper than guilt. This is the harsh, cold reality of the choice I made, the life I detonated. We coexist like ghosts in the days that follow. Half-eaten meals, awkward shuffles in the hallway, both of us avoiding the spaces that used to be ours. I overhear bits of his conversation with Sarah, her voice sharp with anger, his filled with a resignation that echoes in my own chest. My betrayal isn't just ours anymore. The whole damn town knows now. They used to be friendly faces at the grocery store, at Jason's games. Now, their eyes flick away in hushed whispers. The judgment isn't shouted, but I feel it burning my skin all the same. Then there's Mark. Or rather, his absence. The texts I send in frantic moments of weakness go unanswered, like stones tossed into a void. Typical. It makes me want to scream and laugh all at once at the ridiculousness of it all. One morning, I wake to an empty house. He's left for work as usual, but the stack of envelopes on the counter is gone. All that's left is the faint impression of his signature and the lingering sting of loss. I sign the papers. My own hand feels like a stranger's. The scratching of the pen against the thick legal paper sounds like nails on a coffin. This is how my old life dies. Not with a bang, but with the quiet surrender of a signature. Pen_spark. But there's a flicker deep down, something beyond the despair. Anger? Resolve? It's faint, but it's there. I won't crawl away and disappear. I've broken things enough already. Sarah shows up unexpectedly. I brace for confrontation, but her face is drawn, her usual sharpness softened. We make awkward cups of tea, the ritual a flimsy attempt at normalcy. He never deserved this, she says finally, and despite myself. There's a flicker of gratitude in me for her brutal honesty. I know, it's all I can manage. To my surprise, her anger shifts, then settles. Her next words are a bucket of ice water to the face. He always settled. Everyone thought he was lucky to have someone like you, but he wanted more. Didn't have the guts to say it. The words ignite something in me. Was Jason as much a victim in this as I was? The idea twists in my gut. A new flavor of betrayal to wrestle with. I find that Janice glared at herself in the mirror. God, she was getting old. The lines around her eyes were deepening. Her once flat stomach pooching a little. Boring. So boring. A wave of tired frustration washed over her. 10 years married to Carl. 10 years Euro fine. Meals were on time. The house was spotless. Their bank account was fat. But where was the excitement? The danger? Where was the damn passion? Carl was a good man. Sure, but lately he was more spreadsheet than husband. Gotta get my body back, she muttered. A flash of defiance in her eyes. She wasn't ready to settle for a Euro fine anymore. Janice marched online, fingers flying as she booked herself into that shiny new gym everyone was raving about. Her first day, a blur of unfamiliar machines and sweat-drenched strangers, left her feeling sore and a little foolish. But then came Mark. He was all lean muscle and cheesy grins, striding towards her with a cocky, ready to feel alive again, gorgeous. Well, she wasn't dead yet. An hour later, Janice was breathless and buzzing. Mark wasn't just a trainer, he was a motivational speaker disguised as a gym rat. Every lunge, every push-up was punctuated with a, "You got this, girl," or, "Damn, you look strong." His hands corrected her posture, a light touch that sent a shiver down her spine. Back home, she watched Carl hunched over his laptop. A week-old stubble clung to his cheeks, his favorite t-shirt stained with takeout sauce. He barely looked up as she walked in. Meeting ran late. He mumbled. The image of Mark, all smiles and sculpted biceps, burned into her mind. Yeah, it was definitely time for a change. Mark suggested getting coffee after one particularly intense session. Janice, still buzzing from his compliments, agreed without thinking. Coffee turned into an impromptu lunch, laughter and flirtatious banter flowing as easily as the cheap wine they shared. "There's this motel." Mark's voice lowered, his sudden grin a dare. A surge of heat shot through her. This was insane, but wasn't a little insane exactly what she craved? A few hours later, she was staring at her flushed face in the grimy motel mirror, a tangle of guilt and giddy excitement swirling in her stomach. "Never again," she whispered. But even as she said it, Janice knew it was a lie. Coming home became a performance. She'd faked breathlessness, concoct elaborate workout stories for Carl, who'd nod absently, eyes already back on his reports. The ease of it made her feel reckless, powerful. A flicker of guilt would appear, but she'd squash it. She was reclaiming something, wasn't she? Her bank app became her dirty little secret. A small transfer here, a sneaky withdrawal there. Carl never checked anyway, trusting her with their finances like he trusted her with everything else. The money burned a hole in her pocket. Suddenly, the doll lingerie in her drawer wasn't enough. A skimpy lace set for Mark's eyes only, a fancy hotel room instead of that dingy motel. Janice was a new woman. Gone was the bored housewife, replaced by a bolder version fueled by secret trysts and stolen cash. It was wrong. She knew that. But damn, it felt good. The gym became her stage for her performance. She wore tighter leggings. Her workout tops dipped a little lower with each passing week. Mark noticed, his compliments getting cruder, his lingering touches less accidental. Janice thrived on it. The whispers were getting louder too. Snatches of conversation caught in the changing rooms, judgmental stares as she and Mark accidentally brushed hands. It was like a drug, the risk and the attention feeding some dark hunger she never knew she had. Let them talk, she'd whisper to herself, a wicked smile playing on her lips. She'd never been anyone's gossip before. Boring, predictable Janice, always doing the right thing. How dull. This was living, and with each bold move, with each risky rendezvous in plain sight, that thrill intensified. Places with Mark became more daring. A lingering lunch where their knees touched under the table. Chance. Encounter in the grocery store where he casually slipped an arm around her waist, fingers grazing bare skin. It was a game of cat and mouse, and Janice was playing to win. She reveled in living on the edge. Maybe she wanted to get caught, to blow up her boring, predictable life with one grand finale. Or maybe she just loved the power of the secret, the knowledge that she was getting away with something wild, right under everyone's noses. Carl, meanwhile, continued on autopilot. Even when she brazenly left the lipstick-smudged mug on his nightstand, or came home smelling of a cologne he didn't own, his expression barely flickered. At first, it was frustrating. How could he be so blind, so trusting? It made her bolder, crueler. If he wouldn't see her, she'd make damn sure he did. But slowly, a twisted sense of pity crept in. Carl wasn't just oblivious, he was pathetic. It made her reckless, the contempt fueling her affair like gasoline on a wildfire. S. Janice found the letter tucked under the windshield wiper of Carl's car. A single, neatly typed sentence. Your wife isn't as faithful as you think. No signature, just those damning words printed on cheap paper. A jolt of fear shot through her, followed by a surge of defiant glee. Was she finally getting caught? Had the whispers reached the wrong ears? Carl, predictably, brushed it off. Some bored crank, he'd scoffed, tossing the note in the trash. But there was a flicker in his eyes she'd never seen before. Not anger, but uncertainty, doubt, the first tiny crack in his foundation of unwavering trust. It sent her spiraling, not out of worry, but out of a need for more. This game wasn't exciting enough anymore. She needed higher stakes, bigger risks. The money was disappearing quickly. New clothes she never wore, five-star dinners with Mark consumed in hidden booths. Her spending habits screamed, guilty. It was a thrill, outsmarting the bank, outsmarting Carl. If she couldn't have excitement in her marriage, she'd buy it, one designer dress at a time. Mark changed too. The playful flirting soured into sulky demands. He'd call at all hours, guilt-tripping her when she said no to a rendezvous. But babe, you owe me. He'd whine. And somehow she'd always cave, desperate to placate the beast she'd created. Meanwhile, Carl wasn't just oblivious anymore. He was watchful. His eyes lingered on her new perfume, the unexplained absences, the late-night smiles at her phone. She saw the questions swirling behind his eyes, the struggle to reconcile the woman he knew with the stranger she was becoming. The paranoia gnawed at him. But even more, it fueled her. She couldn't stop now. She had to push until everything shattered spectacularly around them. The first sign was the stranger in their driveway. A man with a camera and a bored expression, snapping pictures of Janice as she got into her car. Then came the hushed phone calls Carl tried to hide. The way he'd disappear into his study for hours, a haunted look on his face. She knew, the private investigator, it was only a matter of time before he had everything, photos, receipts, proof of her betrayal splashed across his fancy legal pad. But a strange calm descended over her. Fear, yes, but also a cold defiance. She'd come too far to cower now. You seem different, Mark whined on one of their increasingly tense meetups. What's wrong, babe? He grabbed her wrist, his grip bruising. His neediness was suffocating, a stark contrast to the playful charmer she'd first fallen for. Nothing, she snapped, pulling away, except that her whole world was imploding, and she was the one who lit the match. But then came the twisted realization. Mark was a liability. He knew too much, and his greed was growing. She needed a way out. Meanwhile, Carl's life was unraveling. Late nights at the office weren't about business anymore, but frantic damage control. Suppliers, clients, the trust they'd placed in him was wavering as rumors reached their ears too. He'd confront Janice, pathetic attempts at accusations fueled by desperation. She'd smile, slow and cruel, denying everything. It was almost pleasurable to witness his decline. This was her revenge. The empire he'd prized above her crumbling under the weight of her infidelity. Then it was Mark's turn. 20 grand. Or I tell your hubby all about us, he sneered over the phone. The veiled threats were gone, replaced by raw desperation. Her fault. She'd indulged his whims for too long, letting him believe he was untouchable. It was time to end that illusion, before he ended everything for her. Janice was cornered. But damn it, she wouldn't go down quietly. If this was war, she'd fight dirty. Accessing Carl's accounts felt different now. It was less about indulging herself, more about survival. She drained them with a ruthless efficiency, funneling everything into hidden accounts and Mark's greedy hands to keep him at bay, at least for now. Carl, bless his pathetic heart, still played the role of the trusting husband, but the cracks were widening into fissures, his eyes dull with the pain she almost savored. Every stolen dollar was a slap in his face. Every lie she spun with a sweet smile was a hammer blow to the foundation of their marriage. Rough week at work, punny, she'd coo, while images from the PI's report, her entwined with Mark in a seedy hotel room, flashed through her mind. The thrill of destroying him was intoxicating, outweighing any sliver of guilt she might have once possessed. Even her friends couldn't ignore the change anymore. Worried whispers, lunches canceled under flimsy excuses, her old life was fraying fast. Are you okay, Jan? Sarah had asked, a concerned frown creasing her brow. Janice had laughed it off, her performance bright and brittle. They had no idea the monster she'd become, the monster she was starting to relish. And then, the bomb dropped. The manila envelope on Carl's desk, thick with damning photos and cold, part figures. She didn't see him open it, just heard the shattering sob that echoed through the empty house. The facade of the happy wife crumbled. It shouldn't have been satisfying, but it was. Her victory lap, sick and twisted as it might be. Still, there was no time for gloating. Now, Carl couldn't be controlled, couldn't be manipulated. He was a wounded animal, unpredictable and dangerous, and she had to figure out her next move before he struck back. Carl didn't scream. He didn't throw things. Instead, he crumpled into the worn armchair in his study like a puppet with its strings cut. Janice watched his shoulders shake, heard the ragged sobs she'd never imagined coming from him, and it hit her, a sickening twist in her gut that wasn't guilt, but something close to disappointment. She wanted rage, a fiery explosion to match her own reckless energy. This pathetic display of heartbreak almost bored her. Why? He choked out, finally looking at her with red-rimmed eyes. Why, Janice? Does it really matter? She shrugged, her voice flat, deliberately devoid of emotion. The old Janice might have concocted some elaborate lie. Now, she couldn't be bothered. I was bored. You were boring. I wanted something exciting. His devastation shattered into a chilling rage. You'll get your excitement, he seethed. In a prison cell, because I'm going to bury you, Janice. You'll lose everything. There was a finality in his voice that set off alarm bells in her head. Carl wasn't just some heartbroken fool. He was a businessman, ruthless when he needed to be. Panic flared. She had to move fast. A duffel bag crammed with clothes, her hidden passport, the wad of cash stashed under the bathroom sink. Mark was the escape plan, the only one she had left. She dialed him, hands shaking slightly. I'm on my way, babe. Carl found out. Applause. Then his greedy whine filled the line. Good. About time you dumped that loser. Don't worry. I'll take care of you. The police cruiser's lights flashed red and blue in her rearview mirror. 10 miles from the city limits. 10 miles from freedom. She cursed Carl's lawyers, his connections. He moved quicker than she thought. Had he been playing dumb this whole time, quietly plotting his revenge? No matter. It was too late for regrets. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. The police station was a stark contrast to the sleek hotel rooms she'd grown accustomed to. Harsh lights, stale air, the cold metal of handcuffs biting into her wrists. It was a sharp come-down from her life of stolen luxury. News of her arrest spread like wildfire. Tabloid headlines screamed variations of bored housewife's betrayal. Her face, once carefully curated for social media, was plastered across newspapers, the smug smile replaced by a sullen mugshot. The whispers from the gym transformed into a deafening roar of public judgment. Mark, predictably, was nowhere to be found. His phone went straight to voicemail, the social media wiped clean. The fool had taken her money and run. The second the heat was on, seething, Janice realized how disposable she'd become. She'd gambled her whole life on a man who saw her as nothing more than a cash cow and a good time. Her bank accounts, once overflowing with Carl's money, were locked down. Lawyers in crisp suits swooped in, seizing everything: designer clothes, jewelry, the fancy car. All those material things she believed were essential now felt like a cruel joke, reminders of a life that had crumbled spectacularly. The trial was a blur. Carl's lawyers painted a damning picture of a heartless gold digger, meticulously detailing her lies, the drained accounts, the sordid affair. She tried to play defiant, a wronged woman taking what was hers. But the jury saw through it, her carefully crafted, feminist revenge narrative crumbling under the weight of cold, hard evidence. The verdict hit her like a physical blow. Guilty, jail time. A hefty sum to be paid back to Carl. The gavel came down, a final bang echoing the shattering of her illusions. Sitting in that stuffy courtroom, surrounded by strangers who knew her darkest secrets, Janice finally realized the magnitude of what she'd done. Not just to Carl, but to herself. Prison wasn't like the movies. It was grittier, louder, the stench of sweat and desperation clinging to the air. Janice, the queen bee of her suburban life, became just another number. Another body to be shoved and jostled and ignored. The women here were hard, their eyes reflecting years of pain and bad decisions. She was an outsider, a walking target. The first night was the worst. Crammed into a cramped cell with a surly roommate reeking of cheap cigarettes, Janice choked back tears. Not out of guilt, but out of rage. How dare they lock her up, confine her? She was smarter than everyone here. Smarter than Carl. Smarter than those stupid cops. And that's when the shift happened. Remorse never stood a chance. Prison wasn't a place for reflection, but for plotting. Janice became a student of her new environment. Who ran the gambling ring? Who smuggled in contraband? Networks existed within these concrete walls, and she'd claw her way into them, one favor at a time. Revenge simmered within her, not against Carl. He was a footnote now, a casualty in her bigger scheme. No, the rage was directed inwards. How could she be so careless, so blinded by greed to leave such a messy trail? Next time would be different. Next time she'd be untouchable. One scrawny inmate, Lucy, caught her attention, jittery, always looking over her shoulder. Lucy owed debts, had enemies. Janice saw an opportunity, a whispered offer in the rec yard. A bar of chocolate smuggled into Lucy's cell, and the alliance was formed. It was a small start, an insignificant pawn in the larger game. But Janice was patient. Prison had lots of time, and she'd use every second to rebuild. Stronger, smarter, ready to seize control again. Freedom wasn't a triumphant fanfare, but a muted release back into a world that no longer recognized her. The sleek clothes were replaced by ill-fitting charity shop finds, the perfectly styled hair scraped back into a messy ponytail. She was a ghost of her former self, but the fire in her eyes burned brighter than ever before. Mark was priority number one. She found him, surprisingly easily. Same cocky grin, different gym, and a gullible new set of clients falling for his cheesy motivational speeches. He'd used her money well: flashy car, an apartment overlooking the city, living the high life she'd intended for them both. Seeing him thrive fueled her rage. He'd gotten off scot-free while she rotted behind bars. It wasn't fair, and Janice had no intention of playing fair anymore. Her prison network extended wider than she initially realized. Through whispered phone calls and cryptic messages, she activated her contacts. Lucy, on the outside now, was her point person. A rumor planted with a bitter ex-colleague of Mark's. A doctored photo circulated online implying something inappropriate with a client. His meticulously crafted image began to crack. Whispers about shady practices and unprofessional behavior swirled around him. One client dropped out, then another. Social media turned vicious, the mob mentality latching onto the hint of scandal. It was a beautiful echo of how she had systematically destroyed Carl's business. But this was personal. Yet, even as Mark's little empire crumbled, it didn't bring Janice the satisfaction she craved. He squirmed, he panicked, but it wasn't enough. She wanted him broken, the way she had been when they'd arrested her. A new twist formed in her plan, a darker echo of her old affair tactics. She needed an accomplice, someone as desperate and easily manipulated as Mark once was. Time to find him a new Janice. The call to Carl was cold and calculated, devoid of the pleas or threats he might have expected. "I need your help," she stated simply, and the silence on the other end of the line was almost as satisfying as any apology could have been. Carl, perhaps foolishly, agreed to meet. Some battered part of him still hoped for reconciliation, or maybe he was just morbidly curious to see how low she'd sunk. Either way, it worked in Janice's favor. The plan they crafted was a work of twisted brilliance. They knew Mark. Underneath the bravado, he was predictable, driven by greed and a desperate need for validation. A bogus investment opportunity, a promise of rebuilding an even bigger fitness empire. Janice laid out the bait, and Carl, using the remnants of his business connections, provided the hook. Mark, blinded by the promise of a quick fortune, bit hard. He poured what little money he had left, along with funds scanned from gullible new clients, into the venture, signing contracts without bothering to read the fine print. The arrogance of the man, even in his weakened state, was almost laughable. The takedown was swift and brutal. Fake investors pulled out, bank accounts mysteriously vanished, and anonymous tips about fraudulent activity landed in the hands of very unhappy authorities. This time, there'd be no escaping the consequences. News of Mark's arrest reached Janice in her dingy apartment. He raved about betrayal, claimed she'd set him up, but his cries fell on unsympathetic ears. The police, already familiar with his name from her trial, were less than inclined to listen to his excuses. Victory, Janice supposed, should feel sweet, and there was something darkly satisfying about watching him fall further than she ever had. But as she stared out her window at the gray cityscape, all she felt was a gnawing emptiness. Revenge, it turned out, was a dish best served cold, but it left a bitter aftertaste all the same. Still, a flicker of something twisted warmed her. She was ruined, yes, but it was on her terms. She wasn't some bored housewife anymore. She was